All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today, Wednesday. We are here with Lyle Jones, Director and CEO of Crocker Art Museum here in Sacramento, California. I know many of you that are joining us are artists here in Sacramento, so we'll be talking about how the Crocker Art Museum as it relates to local artists. But I know a lot of you are also outside of the state or not actively artists yourselves, but looking to support artists and be more involved in the art world. So we'll be touching on all of those areas as well. So again, this is Lyle Jones, CEO and Director of the Crocker Art Museum here in Sacramento. Welcome, Lyle. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. Pleased to be here.
Absolutely. So since we do have some people who are outside of the Sacramento area, a lot of people outside of the state, I'd love to get some more on your background. I know you've been with the Crocker, I believe, 25 years, but you've worked in institutions around the country. Is that correct?
Yes, I actually started working in museums when I was still in high school. So
Oh my goodness.
I have later this year will hit the 50-year mark for having worked in museums. So pretty varied background.
Congratulations. And I saw you were the past president of the Association of Museum Directors. Is that correct?
Art Museum Directors, which is an organization of the 220th largest art museums in North America. So Canada, Mexico, and the United States.
Wow, wow, wonderful. So for the artists that are joining us, whether they're in Sacramento and can speak directly to Crocker Art Museum, or maybe they're somewhere else in another state with affiliation with a different museum, what recommendations do you have for them to get engaged with their local museum, and are there resources that support local artists?
Right. So every museum is governed by its mission, and every museum's mission is slightly different. So you need to understand the institution in your area and what actually its main purpose is. So the Crocker is not an institution that was designed, or its mission is not specifically to serve local artists or regional artists. It's really more to help the general public understand, appreciate art and its reflection of the culture in which it was produced. So that, number one, I think, is a key understanding point. However, I don't know of a single art museum in the United States that doesn't work with its local arts community in some way. And I think that what everyone should do is, one, join the institution, pay attention to its member magazines, pay attention to its programming. Many museums, like the Crocker, have artists teach in studio art programs. They have artists speak and or be part of programming for the general public. Many of us also do a regional exhibition or two on, an annual or biennial, triennial cycle. So those opportunities often exist. I sometimes say that the Crocker, and this is actually true, sometimes say that the Crocker writes more checks to artists than any other arts organization in town. And we do. Last year, we wrote over 900 checks. We actually employed over 900 artists in different formats, in different ways. We have artist educators that we send to area schools. We have educators that work at the museum teaching young children different art activities and classes. We have various performing artists, so it's not just visual artists. Various performing artists perform on a regular basis at the museum, and that's everything from spoken word, singing, instrumental, all styles. We have a program on right now that's from jazz to hip hop. That we're doing a series of concerts over the next 3 months or so, looking at different music styles, different musicians, and specifically looking at female vocalists over time. So there are lots of different ways and different types of programming. The Crocker is a particularly program-heavy institution. Pre-pandemic, we had the 10th highest ticketed program attendance of any museum, any art museum in North America. So if you think about that, you think about, say, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. It has, 1 million square feet under a roof. It is size-wise the largest art museum in the United States. But we outperformed the Met in programming and number of people that
Wow.
attended programming. So, you can be surprised by the institutions in your community and just how they strategically decide to best serve their communities.
Beautiful. That's amazing. I mean, 900 checks to artists last year. That's phenomenal. I'm thrilled to hear that. I know here for us, the Crocker is affiliated with Sacramento, the city. Are those opportunities that are on the city website for artists to find out about, or is it by being a member of the museum? How can they find out about those?
Right. So the Crocker is specifically a public-private partnership. It was established by a deed of gift from Margaret Crocker to the city of Sacramento in 1885. The nonprofit Crocker Art Museum Association is in charge of all programming, not the city of Sacramento. The city of Sacramento owns the property, and that
Got
means
it.
also that they own the collection. But the nonprofit grows the collection. Nonprofit does all the fundraising, all the programming. They simply deed the property to the city after they've accepted it from donors. And so that's just a strange way that our governance works. We are a city site, but the programming is done by the nonprofit. Hence, you look at the Crocker Art Museum's website to see opportunities, not the city of Sacramento's. You can
Wonderful.
get to the Crocker website from the city of Sacramento, though.
Yes. Great. Thank you for clarifying that. As far as I know I've done a lot of volunteer work myself with the Crocker, doing some of their arts education programs and being present during their events, including the annual art auction and Big Names Small Arts. So I encourage a lot of people just to volunteer to get involved with those opportunities. But as far as the art auction itself or the Big Names Small Art, a lot of that features local regional artists, and it seems to do a very good job of also being inclusive of the diversity of Sacramento and male, female, all of that. And so I'm curious how artists can get more involved with those and what the prereqs are for them to be included.
Right. So specifically for the art auction and Big Names Art, Big Names Small Art, or BNSA, is part of the art auction season. So just talk a little bit about that. First of all, the art auction is a fundraiser for the Crocker. It does provide necessary funds for operations. So understand that we take very seriously this event because it helps us tremendously. So we encourage artists to let us know that they'd be interested in receiving information on entry. The art auction itself is juried, so an artist can submit, I believe, and every year it changes slightly, but I believe this year it's up to 3 objects. Send in photographs of them electronically. They are screened. The selection is pretty fierce competition. We get a lot of people enter, and we have pretty much a maximum of 130 pieces or so we can accept. So last year, your chances, I think there were 900 entries, so
Oh,
we
wow.
took 120 of them. So, it's pretty steep competition. But what we're looking for is actually variety. So we're looking for works that come in at a variety of styles, media, price points. All of that is really important. There is a sweet spot for the art auction that we're very familiar with, that works that are valued between $2,500 and $6,000 tend to be the ones that sell the best. Works under $2,000 also sell well, but really it's that price point. So that's important for artists to think about when they enter a work, because if they put something in that's $10,000 or more, it's not that it might not sell, it just is not likely to do as well as something that's priced lower. And that's just partly who our audience is. And the audience is, for the most part, emerging collectors, but people that do consider themselves beginning or in the stages of art collection. We do a silent auction and a live auction. So there are usually about 20 pieces that are selected for live auction, and that is an in-person event. The silent auctions are done online, and we have found that that is really successful in getting bidders not only from the Sacramento region, but actually from around the world. We also have artists enter from around the world. When we first started doing this online and got our first submissions from France, we're kind of a little suspect, but we found that it actually does work
Wow.
pretty well. So that's the auction. One thing that's really key is there's actually a museum exhibition of all the auction items, and that exhibition is up for a month or so. So visitors to the museum get to know the work. People that come to the auction and people that go online see all of the work. So it's a great vehicle for getting your name out there and your work out there. It's only one piece per artist is accepted. So it's not like a wonderful broad showing of your work, but it does get some out there. And then big name small art is well, wait, I'll back up a minute. For the art auction, we sell the works, you set the price, we sell the works. The bidding starts at a percentage of the fair market value of the work, but then the artist gets 50% of the proceeds of all work sold. So we think that that's particularly important and something we've done with the auction forever. Artists are always asked to contribute. We're well aware of that. It seems like a lot of people look at auctions for fundraising. We think it's really important to pay artists, and so that we enter this, everybody to know that this is a fundraising event, but we are happy to share the proceeds of any items sold. And we have on occasion sold things for one piece that had a fair market value of, I think, $6,000 recently sold for $60,000. So
Oh, wow.
occasionally somebody can do really well. That
Yeah.
is not the norm. Not
Beautiful.
but if there's a bidding war, it can really help an artist and the museum. So that's nice.
Absolutely.
Big Name Small Art is really geared to beginning collectors and mid-level collectors. It's open to anybody. You can submit any work. It will be accepted. So there's not a jurying process. We just put the work out. The work must be 12 inches square or smaller. So it's small work. It can have any fair market value, but bidding on every item begins at $25. We've had works that are valued. I think the highest is about $6,000 in big name small art. But many have, $100 value. The ones that are lower priced tend to achieve more than market value, but that contribution comes totally to the Crocker. So it's the artist saying, yes, I want to give you this small piece, and I understand that you'll keep all of the proceeds. Now, we do, in exchange for donations, provide memberships to artists as well.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
if you enter, you can say, please give me a membership, and we will happily do that. We want you to be members. We want you to see what we're offering. We want you to come to visit and take advantage of our programming as well. So we're happy to have that happen.
Beautiful. Now, speaking of the collectors and what level they're at as far as big name small art and the auction, I'm curious what resources you have that, obviously being an art museum invites people to come in and appreciate art, but are there any specific programs that help people cultivate their collection or their knowledge when they are looking to get into collecting?
Yes, we've done a number over the time. We find that they're not particularly well attended. I'll just be honest. We still try. So we usually do one or two every year or two, just trying to introduce people into the world of collecting, what to look for, and the different types of venues where people can find work, and some of the I don't want to say secrets around those different types of venues, but strategies for
Mhm.
looking. So, of course, we want people to go to local museums, art centers, and galleries, but we also want people just to look. And I find that one of the greatest things a collector can do is really look deeply as much art as possible to start developing their eye. And the more they see, um, uh, generally, the broader their interests will become. I believe that I have a personal prejudice that I want art to be more than pretty, right? I want art to move me in some way. That's hard for people that are beginning collecting because they think really often about do they think a work of art is beautiful and that's their only criteria for accepting it. And we all know that art, at times, artists create work that is not beautiful because they want to move us in a specific way. That work
Mhm.
can often be even more important and more have greater staying power in a collection than work that is really just decorative. And so try to talk about that. Try to get people to think about the purpose and meaning of an artwork when they're looking at it, and to understand that there are a variety of meanings and purposes, and artists tend to be pretty intentional about their creations, and to really appreciate the great variety of work that's produced.
Wonderful. Yeah. I feel like having studied art and art history for much of my background, a lot of that has to do with learning more about the artist and where they're coming from and why they've created it. That brings another layer beyond the appearance of it, but the meaning behind it. What is the Crocker's strategy around providing that context or educating viewers and potential collectors on some of that?
Multi-strand. So we do talks and tours, lectures. When we have expanded labels on the objects and the work that usually provide information on the artist, what to look for in a particular image. It's all part of a goal of educating viewers and making them more understanding and really stretching them. When I came to the Crocker, there was a belief that the museum only showed one type of work, and it was somewhat true, honestly. We look at our exhibition schedule in a 3 to 5 year block and try to make sure that there is, by design, a great diversity of exhibitions offered. Media, one person, multi-person exhibitions, different time periods, different countries of origin, etc. And we're very intentional about the diversity in any 3 to 5 year block. And when I say 3 to 5 year block, you have to understand we book exhibitions 3 to 5 years in advance. That's just a standard in the field. So we're always looking out on a far horizon, which means that we're not as nimble as an organization that does not book an exhibition that far in advance. But that is the standard for major art museums, and that's how exhibitions travel. And that's when you're organizing exhibitions for travel, and the Crocker does a great deal of that. That's also what you have to do because everybody else is booking 3 to 5 years out as well.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So with that in mind and the increase in being more diverse in those 3 to 5 year blocks, where would you say as far as women artists being represented in the Crocker, how are we doing at that level currently?
Right. So actually, diversity has been built into the DNA of this institution since I've been here anyway. It's been something that we've paid a great deal of attention to. Um, eh, eh, I believe strongly that, I want to see myself at a museum, and I expect everybody else that enters the doors wants to see themselves as well. So, having a diverse collection helps do that. I also believe that you don't want to see just work by people just like you want to see others as well, because that helps your education. But as far as women artists within our collection. I don't have the percentage on view right now, but I think it's probably around 25%, which is pretty high. We also have a very diverse collection by BIPOC artists, LGBTQ artists, etc. As I said, it's been part of our goal for the last 25 years. This past year, about 80% of our exhibitions were by BIPOC artists. So that's not a percentage that we shoot for every year, but as I said, we do look thematically at trying to make sure that we're covering have something there for everybody over that 3-year block, and we tend not to put them all together at just one time, but put them throughout the calendar and throughout the years.
Wonderful. I think I'll open it up since we have some folks here live. Do any of you have any questions while we have Lyle here with us that you wanted to get answered before I continue down my path of questions? Anyone here live have a question they'd like answered? All right.
I always think it, sorry, I always think there's two different ways I look at questions. One is people want to hear themselves talk. 2, they want to hear the answer to a specific question. Or 3, they're like thinking, how can I formulate a question that makes sense for everybody else on the screen, even though I may want to ask it? So don't hesitate to ask questions. Happy to do it. And don't worry about the form of the question. This is, I sometimes say, a great opportunity to ask whatever you want and understand that the answer may be very profound and helpful, and it may be very far off base.
I love it. Thank you for opening that up for everybody.
So Hogan has asked for an update on the park project. So the Crocker is situated with an unimproved lot of land across the street from it, a city block that was cleared as part of urban renewal. The Crocker sits on the edge of downtown Sacramento. It was the only building left standing in a 63 block area that was cleared as part of urban renewal in the 60s. So Crocker Park is called a park. It is not actually a park. It's an unimproved lot of land, though we have said that we want to turn it into an art park. This was something that we went through pre-pandemic, and we did some designs. As I've mentioned, we're the partners with the city of Sacramento, so that property is actually owned by the city of Sacramento, but it's held in trust for the Crocker Art Museums. So we were working on trying to come to an agreement with the city on how we develop that park. The pandemic came and shut everything down, so we just put the project on hiatus. When we started coming out of the pandemic more, those of you that are familiar with Sacramento know that it's got some very serious homeless issues, and a lot of the city's focus is on homeless specifically. We tried to come back to an agreement on how we would develop the park. We finally decided that we're going to keep it on hold for now. We're going to do the park project in the future, but because we have received some specific money through fundraising for the park and its development, we're going to do an interim stage of putting in sidewalks, pathways, and sites for sculpture. And we're going to put in at least one sculpture sooner rather than later. That should all be finished within the next 2 years or so. And then we'll come back to the larger park project that we originally envisioned and do that in the future with a new director. So that is part of, I'm doing what I can to make that park really put the footprint, put the stamp on it as it's part of the museum for the community, trying to improve it so it becomes a better functioning space. Right now, without sidewalks, if you need to walk across the park for any reason, it can be muddy and difficult to walk. So people tend to walk in the middle of the street. That's not very safe. So we're trying to get that done immediately, and we are in process on that work currently.
Thank you. And you mentioned with a new director, I know you are out at the end of this calendar year. Do they have someone already in place, or what does that look like for the future?
No, in fact, our board just, or our executive committee just met yesterday to begin the process of forming a search committee and what that search will look like. There will be a national search for a new director for the museum. And I think that, I have been here 25 years. That's a very long time. The average tenure in an art museum right now in the US is between 5 and 8 years. I just happen to be what one of my staff members call a sticker. Uh, uh, I really love generational change in a community and seeing um, how kids you saw when they were in grade school kind of continue to support the museum when they're in college. I think that's just really exciting. And I also personally believe that, you can come in and you can make a lot of changes with an institution, but if you're not there long enough, the institution will slide back into what its kind of DNA is, or has become over time. And, we have changed the Crocker in many, many ways. The Crocker is never going to go back to the institution it was. It may not be as successful as it is right now for a while, because following a long-term director is also not easy for a new director, um, uh, because people, I mean, I have built up a lot of relationships in this community, a lot of relationships with donors, with artists and others, and people tend to be loyal to folks that they have good relationships with. And, part of changing leadership is that somebody comes in with fresh new ideas and you need to give them a chance. I've done this for 25 years. My reservoir of new ideas is not as deep as it was 25 years ago. So I'm hoping somebody will come in after me who's really great and has new ideas and takes the museum to the next level. That would be harder for me to do. But if that person does not begin to establish the same kind of deep relationships I've had, it's also going to be hard for them to do because finding funding to do things is never easy.
Mhm.
And you need to think about how the changes you're making, they need to be considered. They need to be in the best interest of the institution and the community. They can never be in the interest of the director. It just doesn't work well. And I know one of the easiest ways to make change in the community is to talk about how horrible the person was that was before you. So that's one of the things I'm prepared for.
Interesting. All good thoughts to ponder on. And I missed that. Will you be part of that selection process, or will that be completing afterwards?
No, no, it will be a search committee will be formed. It'll be about 7 to 9 people. I will be advisory to that search committee.
Nice, nice. 25 years. Wow. I think that's been an amazing career here with the Crocker Art Museum. And like you said, being involved with museums since high school. What are the key things that you would say for women who want to invest in art and women artists that, with your experience in the art world, are some of the key advice or things that they could be thinking about to accelerate their career or accelerate their ability to collect art at a higher level? What does that look like to you?
Um, Go out, look, and buy. But think about um, buying the things you love, because that's always number one. It's not about a perceived monetary value or worth of an item. If you love something, it's priceless to you, regardless of what a market might say. Understand that the resale market for art, for the most part, is horrible. So you're not buying things for a monetary investment. You're buying things because you love them, and then you don't really care about what somebody else might pay for them, because they're yours. I often say, and this because I have a lifetime of experience of it, you never um, question. You never regret the items you buy. You only regret the items you don't buy.
Yes.
When you see things that you like and you don't acquire them, maybe you don't have the money or whatever, those are the works that tend to stick with you. And if they were really meaningful, you remember them forever, which then spurs you on to make sure you try to get the next one that you really
So
like.
true.
You know, it will haunt you for years and decades to come. So don't be afraid to, if you see something, to acquire it. There's a story, and I uh, I think about this sometimes. There was a woman, um, um, Kathy Gilmeister, who's long since passed away. But Kathy Gilmeister lived in Folsom, California, not too far from Sacramento. A household of fairly modest means. She would go out antiquing every now and then, and she loved cups and saucers, and she'd buy them, for a couple of dollars here or there. So one day she's at a shop and she sees a cup and saucer, and she absolutely fell in love with it. And she called her husband and she said, I saw this, and this was a time, I think, when she probably had to get his permission. I'm not sure. But she called her husband. She said, I saw this cup and saucer. I absolutely love it. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And he said, well, then you should buy it. And she said, you don't understand. It's $250. And he said, no, go ahead and get it. It means that much to you. Go ahead and get it. Well, the cup and saucer was Meissen pottery
Mhm.
from the 17th century, early piece. It started Kathy Gilmeister collecting Meissen tableware. She formed what was generally considered the best collection of Meissen tableware in the United States. She decided to sell the collection as she was getting on in age, and it went to a variety of different major collectors. And she was saw a nice, handsome return on her investment. But she also knew a lot about Meissen. She waited a couple of years and then she decided that she missed acquiring Meissen. So she started a second collection. Towards the end of her life, she was beginning to have memory loss, etc. Her family was worried about her, but they also looked at Meissen as one of her great legacies. Because she lived in Folsom, they contacted us and said, would you be interested in acquiring this collection? We'd like to leave it in honor of our mother and her legacy in this material. And we had a history of collecting ceramics, international ceramics, since 1921, when the first Korean ceramics came into the museum, which started as collecting ceramics and Asian art. And so we said, yes, we'd like to come see the collection, etc. And Kathy, by this point, had kind of shrunk. She was small. She kind of shuffled around and everything else. She, couldn't remember certain things. But you would point to a dish, and she immediately would know exactly what it was, what she paid for it, where she got it, everything else,
Wow.
because that material was so important to her. That collection is now at the Crocker, and I think is a great legacy to this woman. But she started out just acquiring something she liked, and then built a phenomenal reputation as a Meissen collector, and the objects that have been in her collection are around the world today. So start anywhere you can, just start.
What a great inspiration. Thank you for sharing that story. As far as people donating to the Crocker and its collection, what is the process or prerequisites for that?
Right. So our collection grows almost exclusively through gift. We have almost no money for acquisition. Occasionally, we will do some directed fundraising for certain acquisitions, but not very often. So it's almost all gift. And we are in a very acquisitive institution. We added nearly 1,000 works to our collection last year. So that's a lot for an art museum. Our collection today numbers about 28,000 or so. When I came to the museum, it was about 9,000. So
Oh,
you
wow.
see that we add a lot of work.
Yeah.
If there is something that you're interested in, or a group of objects you're interested in, contact us. Share pictures. Say, what your thoughts are. And if it's your own work, understand that the US government's laws are not in your favor. You, as an artist, can only deduct the value of your materials with art. So, pick Sacramento artist Wayne Thiebaud. Wayne's works were selling for millions of dollars. Wayne could only deduct cost of his paints, his canvas stretchers, if he were to donate a work of art. So think about the strategy of doing that. If you swap a work with another artist colleague, you can donate each other's works and get a deduction for the fair market value of the pieces. So there are ways to do this that's very advantageous, both from a tax point of view and getting your work into a collection. As far as adding works to the collection, we look at a variety of things. So we have a lot of work produced by artists from this region. And that's not unusual. Most institutions have a lot of work that is produced locally. Their collection tends to grow with contemporary work more than older work, because that's what people have and what they're thinking about donating at any particular time. So what we do is look at the work, assess its strengths, its weaknesses. We do look at the resume of the artist, because that is important art historically for the future. But that's not the only thing we look at. In fact, this institution has a very strong history of giving artists their first one-person exhibitions in a museum and collecting artists' works very early in their career.
Wow.
So we're always looking for work that expands our collection. If we have work by somebody, we're always looking to improve the quality of that work in later acquisitions. So if I have a work by you in the collection, it doesn't mean that I will necessarily say no to a new work, but I generally will want it to show growth over the other work. I want it to be like more of an exhibition size than the other work, because very small work tends not to be seen often. It just has to do with the architecture and the installation process. If work is experimental or a new direction, usually the museum will not take it right away. They'll want to see how that plays out in an artist's career, and how we're excited to see stylistic changes and growth in an artist's career. But generally, you don't want that kind of initial work of a new design until the artist has been proven with that work, and then you desire it very much. So it's just one of those funny things that happen. So we're looking for to fill gaps in the collection. We're looking for works that will help put other works in the collection in a greater context. I always look at trying to make sure that the artists in a region are represented, that we don't miss people that we think have great talent and importance in the long run. If you're a teacher, and that's often very important, because you're then guiding a next generation of artists, and we love to see how that generational change again affects and sees how things are going. So there are a lot of variety of ways that we look and assess a particular work. One thing that's important, all museums prune their collection over time, and we very much follow the guidelines of the industry, which is that any work that enters the collection, if it is ever sold, its proceeds can only be used to acquire new works of art. So the collection is never looked at as a monetary asset. It is looked at as an asset to further the mission of the institution. It's not for other gain. So we really turn down more works of art and more gifts than we accept, because once we accept them, we take on the responsibility of preserving them, keeping them in good condition forever. The old estimate, and this estimate is now about 10 years old, every gift of a work of art that is offered tends to cost a museum about $6,000.
Mm,
So even though you're thinking of it as being free, we're looking at it as the fact that no, it's something that does increase our operating costs at that particular time and down the road. We have storage, conservation, we have photography, research, everything else that happens on these collections, just doing the registration records. It all costs money. So we do, we're selective. I'll just say it that way.
sure, sure, that makes sense. Thank you so much for the wealth of information. Does anyone else have any questions while they're here with us live that they would like Lyle to answer for you? All right. We have about 20 more minutes, but if we have no more live questions, I don't believe I have too much left. Let me just check my list here. I think we answered everything I had in mind.
Well, I'm
So
curious who's on the call. So I know a couple of names I see. Um, can I ask, are people, hi Paula, who's on the call? I'm just kind of curious in what your interest might be.
feel free, anyone, to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'll jump into the fray. My name is Lisa Fitzgerald. I'm with Hines. We are a commercial developer and office property management, and recently had the pleasure of working with Catherine on a commission with two local artists in our lobby that have produced very positive results with Rafael Delgado and Jeremy Stanger. Separately were commissioned to kind of come together and create an interesting environment in our otherwise sort of dated lobby. We were looking to make it a little more whimsical, a little more joyful, and I think we've accomplished that. So we're neighbors. We're on R Street, on the R Street corridor. We're partners with CalPERS on 6 parcels on R Street and 1 on Capitol Mall.
Great. I think that you can't overstate the importance of artwork in public spaces. And whether that's on the street, just so everybody can kind of see it, or in interiors and offices and elsewhere, all of that work, the whole visual environment of somebody when they're walking around, they're experiencing, doing their day-to-day activities, is part of developing their eye, part of their understanding that art is a common thing. And one of the things I know is there are some people that have, experience. Well, I'm going to back up. When I first started getting into this field, I actually was particularly interested in historic house museums and decorative arts. And I actually switched while I was in college to more fine art, because I understood that most people, and I often say this, most people have an experience with a chair. They know what a chair is. They might not understand, the connoisseurship and the finer points of what makes one chair finer than another chair. And connoisseurship is something that is actually not taught as much today as it was when I was a student. And I think that's too bad for the field. But most people understand just the basic form, function, and idea behind a chair. An awful lot of people have no particular interaction with works of art, and they don't really understand them. And I was fortunate enough to kind of be introduced to specifically painting in a way that made me understand the magic of what an artist does. That an artist can transport you to a different place, a different time, can take you out of the circumstances you're in within your own life, and let you experience something totally different. And that is what I think is so exciting about works of art. The fact that I can be moved, I can be transformed, I can have my life changed by looking at an object, but I have to be receptive to looking and to beginning to understand and appreciate what it is I'm looking at. And then just being open enough to just be wowed by the fact that you're seeing magic ahead of you on a two-dimensional surface. There's this whole world that you feel like you can walk right into. And that's pretty exciting.
It is, it is. And the more that we have that around our community, the more opportunities for that experience. Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lyle. Anyone else want to introduce themselves and let us know what you came here to hear or contribute?
Well, I'm Susan Woodford. I'm a metal sculptor, fairly new to the area. And one of the things that I love about what you just said, aesthetics are supposed to be within the 7 top basic needs, and actually number 5. And so places like the Crocker Museum are actually offering aesthetics and that need to people who otherwise they're not getting it, possibly in their older lobby or in their home. And you're geared towards the one auction event is basically geared towards early collectors. And I would assume there's somewhat of an education process for them.
We try, and so I did say earlier, we do a program every couple of years. It's never particularly well attended, but we also do tours of the auction items for the general public, and either those tours are either led by staff or by docents who are trained to do that. And it's all part of getting people to look and see things. It's also, frankly, one of the problems in Sacramento is the fact that the ecosystem for the arts is not that developed. There aren't a lot of galleries, there aren't a lot of collectors. And because of that, just because who tends to buy art, a lot of them buy what they know and what their neighbors have. So there's a lot of homogeneity in the collecting of this area. And so we're constantly trying to expand that. I will say that I've purchased an awful lot of works from the auction that were really great that nobody bid on because they didn't know the artist. And that's too bad. It does mean that there's tremendous opportunity for people that will look at the items that are there to find great pieces that are not as valued as they should be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we are trying to expand that base. The gallery scene in Sacramento, I mean, it's really tough to try to make a gallery work here because of the lack of that collector base. And it's something that I think we all have an obligation to try to support galleries in our area as much as we can in any way that we can, because it is a good gallery base, a good collector base. It's not just the cost of living in a place, but it's those other 2 items that make Sacramento attractive to artists. And when I first came to Sacramento, a lot of artists in this community didn't show here. They showed elsewhere because there really was an opportunity here. And that's unfortunately still the case, though it goes up and down on how many opportunities there are, but there need to be more.
Agreed. Agreed. In the chat, we have an artist and professor at the Makerspace at Sac City College who's at the lab now, who shared her website, tenaciousgoods.com. And then we have Judy Jacobs is an artist and big name small art contributor for many years. She had to jump off the call to leave for a doctor's appointment, but wanted to thank you for all the information and to wish you the best for your future endeavors upon your retirement. You've made huge improvements for the Crocker and will be missed. I can
Thank you.
second that. And then we have Kathy saying, yes, thank you for all you've done. I've been in bidding wars many times on the big name small art and in Crocker Kingsley.
Yeah,
So
me too.
Excellent. Anyone else want to share while we have Lyle with us? Yeah, Sarah.
Hey, I'm a local artist here in Sacramento. My name's Sarah Golden, and I mainly sell directly to my collectors, through my website and stuff. So I'm really trying to learn other ways to place my art and just expanding my network, and not necessarily so much so just like directly through, social media and my website and stuff. So
Good, good. Thank you for being here.
You know, my experience is yeah, some of the best audience for artists are other artists too. And you know, it's that's where you can, you know, get great validation because other artists know what you're doing, what you're creating. They understand the struggles in the community, and one of the things is just being out there. And I have to say, one of the reasons why I'm retiring is there was a point when I was in Sacramento that I tried to get to everything, and right now I'm just tired. And I think that our community deserves somebody that's out there all of the time, and I just can't be that person right now.
Fair enough. Anyone else want to introduce themselves while you're here?
Well, Lyle, I just wanted to thank you for your time today and the details you gave about the auction and about donating to the Crocker. I know you've probably given that topic a lot of talk, but it's really important to women artists to hear it and share it. And I want to thank Kathy as well for bringing you here, and she'll be posting this for more women to see. And I agree with you about artists are the best audience for other artists because we really appreciate each other.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
thank you. And thank you for being such a great director at the Crocker and being so supportive of. I've seen you at all kinds of venues, so you've been out there, and I really appreciate that
Absolutely.
support.
Yeah. Well, and Paula, you're one of those people that, you know, was involved in the museum when I first came to Sacramento and kind of understands too. It's a different place than it was 25 years ago. But I still think it needs to be a better place than it is now.
Yeah, I have to champion Paula. When I opened my art gallery on J Street, she was there with a paintbrush in hand to help me turn a shoe store into a white cube. So I appreciate her efforts in all areas of our local art community, and appreciate all of you for being here and taking the step towards informing yourselves and finding out about opportunities to make the most of this community that we have, and really championing women artists and women collectors and supporting each other. So thank you, Lyle, for being a part of that in this big puzzle of the art world, helping us be more enlightened and more informed of what we can do to enhance our careers and our collections. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and good luck and keep it up for all of you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.